Hello and welcome. So today we're going to dive into metaphysics, the branch of philosophy that deals with the fundamental nature of reality. Metaphysics asks questions that challenge our most basic assumptions. What exists? What is real? Are things as they appear, or is there a deeper reality beneath the surface? So there is sort of 4 points on today's agenda, if you will, that we are going to look at. So first and foremost, we're going to get stuck into the most obvious question: what is metaphysics? And then we are going to have a little think about Plato's theory of forms. And we're also going to explore the allegory of the cave. And we are finally going to have a little look at some of these sort of modern perspectives on metaphysics. So, as I already said, metaphysics deals with questions about the ultimate nature of reality and the universe and, existence in general. So while physics studies the physical world, metaphysics goes beyond it, asking questions like what is time? Do objects exist independently of our perceptions? Is there a soul? And so on. At this point, I think it would be a good idea to have a quick look at where we get the name metaphysics from. So we get that from Aristotle. And Aristotle was an ancient Greek philosopher, a student of Plato's, and what remains of Aristotle's work is essentially like lecture notes rather than like written for a book sort of thing. And he did one called Physics about the physical world, and then he did one called Metaphysics, which just means after physics. Now there is some debate in the world of sort of philosophy and literature as to whether Plato meant whether Aristotle meant um, like all the things that that go beyond physics, or if he meant it's quite literally the lecture after the physics lecture. Now, I say it is a bit of a debate, but it's kind of a pointless debate because the way we use the word, which is the important bit, is to describe the things that go beyond physics, things that can't be explained just by physics. So it's as I said, it's a bit of a pointless debate, but I thought it was interesting. So anyway, let's get back to it. So there are some key questions in metaphysics, and there are questions like, what is the nature of existence? Do abstract concepts like numbers or morality exist independently? Is the universe deterministic, or do we have free will? So consider this. When you see a tree, is it real because you perceive it? Or does the tree exist independently of you? Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle gave very, very different different answers to this question. So, before we continue, I want you to have a quick think about that question. When you see a tree, is it real because you perceive it? Or does it exist independently of you? I want you to jump in the comments and answer that question. So feel free to pause the video. In fact, it'd probably be better if you do, because then you don't miss the next bit. But pause the video and I will be here waiting for your return. So, did you do it? Excellent. I look forward to reading your responses in the comments. So now that we have had a sort of a brief look at what metaphysics is, what we mean when we say metaphysics, let's have a look at have a little think about Plato's theory of forms. So Plato is one of the most influential figures in metaphysics. In fact, I would go beyond that. Plato might be the most influential figure in the history of the Western world. He is to philosophy what, in terms of influence, I mean, he is to philosophy what Jesus is to Christianity. And I don't mean that like Plato was a prophet or whatever. I mean purely in terms of the reach and the influence of his ideas, because the ideas of Plato permeate through Western culture and society and have done for the last 2,500 years. So he really is one of the most influential humans to have ever lived. So Plato believed that the world we perceive with our senses is not the ultimate reality, but a shadow of a higher, more perfect reality that he called the forms. So according to Plato, the forms are perfect, unchanging, and eternal. And the physical world is an imperfect reflection of these forms. So as an example, the form of a circle is a perfect circle. Any circle we draw is an imperfect attempt to replicate it. And going beyond any circle we draw, I mean any circle you perceive with your senses is an imperfect attempt to replicate it. So let's try another example. Imagine a chair. I mean, this is the classic example always given by basically every philosophy teacher ever. And who am I to break with tradition? So imagine a chair. Plato would say that there is a perfect form of a chair that exists in a non-physical realm. And every physical chair that we encounter in the sort of sensory and perceptual world is an imperfect copy of that ideal form. So now I want you to do something, and it's going to involve you pausing the video and writing in the comments. So think of an example where the concept of a perfect form might apply. And jump in the comments and share that with us. Go ahead and pause the video. But don't think too long and hard about this. Otherwise you'll be here all day. But pause the video and jump in the comments to answer the question, or to what is the example that you thought of where a concept of a perfect form might apply. So go and pause the video. Have you done that? Excellent. So let's move on now to the allegory of the cave. So the allegory of the cave is something that Plato came up with, and it was essentially to illustrate his metaphysical ideas. So let's go through it. So there is a scene, right? There are a bunch of prisoners, and they are chained up in a cave facing a wall. And behind them, a fire casts shadows of objects carried by people. And the prisoners perceive the shadows as reality. And one prisoner escapes and sees the real world outside the cave. So I want you to think about that scene. Just sit with it for a minute and think about it. So there's prisoners chained up in a cave facing a wall, and behind them a fire casts shadows of objects carried by people. And the prisoners perceive the shadows as reality, and one prisoner escapes and sees the real world outside the cave. So the shadows in the allegory, the shadows represent our sensory experiences. And the real world outside the cave represents the world of the forms. So Plato suggests that philosophers are like the prisoner who escapes. They seek the truth beyond appearances. So that's the allegory of the cave, and you'll hear it mentioned when you listen to basically anyone talk about philosophy and so on and so forth. So it's a foundational idea to understand, and Plato's allegory of the cave is an excellent way of sort of visualizing his theory of forms. So, can you think of situations in modern life that are like the cave? For example, how might social media or advertising or whatever distort our understanding of reality? So, this is another one of those times where you're going to want to pause the video. And what you to do is jump in the comments with your answer. But I also want you to find someone else's answer and question them about it, and allow people to question you on yours, and hopefully that will get some discussion going between all of you, right? So pause the video and I will be here. So we've looked at Plato's theory of forms, and we've looked at his allegory of the cave. So let's now look at some modern perspectives on metaphysics. While Plato's ideas were groundbreaking, and that is, to say the least, it is an understatement, modern philosophers have challenged and indeed expanded on metaphysical questions. So some modern metaphysical questions might be, is reality deterministic or probabilistic? Quantum mechanics and metaphysics. Does the mind exist independently of the body? So that's dualism versus materialism. Are time and space fundamental, or are they emergent properties of the universe? So consider the idea of a what's the word I'm looking for? A simulation. Could our entire reality be a sophisticated simulation? You know, like in the Matrix. To have a think about that. Philosophers like Nick Bostrom. I'm terrible at remembering people's names. Philosophers like Nick Bostrom have argued that this is not only possible, but actually extremely likely. So I want you to have a think about that. Imagine for a moment that you are in essentially the Matrix. Do you think that's even possible? How would you know that you're in the Matrix or not in the Matrix, so to speak, and so on? And so think about that idea, and I do have a question relating to that idea. So have a good think about that idea of reality as an extremely sophisticated simulation. So if we were living in a simulation, would it change how you approach life? If so, why? And if not, why not? So again, I want you to pause the video and I want you to jump in the comments and answer that question. If we were living in a simulation, would it change how you approach life? Why or why not? So pause the video and I'll be here. So have you done it? Excellent, excellent. So in an effort to wrap this up and not keep you all day, because I'm giving you lots to think about here, I think. So metaphysics challenges us to think beyond the surface. Plato's forms and the allegory of the cave remind us that what we see might not be the complete and full picture of reality. Modern metaphysics continues to ask these sort of profound questions about existence and reality, but the questions are more nuanced because our understanding of the world through science and such has dramatically improved since the time of Plato. So the questions remain, but the framing of those questions has changed a bit to account for the nuances of our new understanding. There is a question I want you to think about as we part ways today. What, if anything, do you believe exists beyond what we can see or measure? And I want you to write a short paragraph of this one and shove it in the comments, post it in the comments. That's what I was trying to say. So I can, have a good old nose, have a look, but also so can other people, and hopefully gain some inspiration and learning as a collaborative experience. So hopefully through the interactions that you all have with one another, everybody gets to sort of refine their viewpoints. So that question was, what, if anything, do you believe exists beyond what we can see or measure? So in the next video, we're going to have a look at epistemology, which is like the study of knowledge. How can we know anything about reality? So we'll look forward to seeing you on that one. But as I say, have a good think about that question. The what, if anything, do you believe exists beyond what we can see or measure? And put your response to that in the comments. I look forward to reading those. And before I go, if you haven't done already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out, but it also means that YouTube will continue to keep showing you not just my content, but content from other creators that are talking about similar things. And, well, we all benefit from that. So that would be wonderful. But at the same time, there's no pressure. So if you don't want to like and subscribe, nobody will hold it against you. But if you do want to do it, then wonderful. Thank you very much. And I genuinely do really appreciate it. So thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one when we discuss epistemology.